here. I grew up here. I love Mattatak. You know, I love the North Fork. Like anywhere from like, I don't even leave the North Fork. Like from Riverhead to Greenport, like that's probably about as far as I go.
The North Fork is a special place. You do not find areas like the North Fork anymore, particularly in New York State. When people come to Southold for the first time, they're amazed that towns like Southold still exist. And it's important to keep Southold the way it is because of the fact that it's such an enclave of America and its past. We don't want to be like the rest of Long Island, and frankly, people that live here don't want to live in the rest of Long Island. They do not want to live up west, or they'd be there. Affordable housing is very important to Southold town. Southold is a community, and communities require diversity, age diversity, socioeconomic diversity. Otherwise, we're no longer a community. In Southold, one of our biggest problems is that we're losing that diversity. We're losing younger people. I've always said that Southold's biggest export is young people. They can't stay. Housing is one of those challenges. Housing, meaningful employment. It's very difficult for a young family to start out and to stay on the North Fork. They're going away, they're going to college in other communities in other states. They're seeing the quality of life they can have there. They're seeing the availability of housing that we don't have here, and they're opting to stay. We need them back. I don't know if Southold can sustain itself over the long term without a healthy year-round population.
It's a problem.
It's so expensive out here, you know, like I want to stay out here, but you know, my fiance, like, you know, we just got engaged and, you know, he wants to move down south. Like his mom already moved down south. One of my sisters already moved down south. And, you know, you're looking at houses and you can't even find anything that's even decent for under $300,000 on the North Fork. You know, if you're finding something under that, it's probably dilapidated and falling apart. So, you know, but who knows? You know, I wish we could afford to live out here, and we're still trying.
I get people calling my office all the time, desperately trying to keep their places, find a place.
There should be more available, not only to seniors, but to working people too.
And we just have to do everything in our power to create affordable housing. Specifically, what does that necessarily imply? If we had a single apartment complex of 30 or 40 units combined of 1 to 3 bedroom units, that would really have been a tremendous resolve to our issues with affordable housing, but we don't have anything out there.
Well, it's very needed. There's no young population that can stay here. They all run out of town because there's no future for them. There's no place to live. I mean, even my own children, I tell them they got to get out of here because they can't afford to stay here. And that's pretty much the consensus of a lot of parents. They don't want to see their children working 2 or 3 jobs to live in a bungalow and have somebody else raise their children while they're working their hearts out to have the American dream.
The people who will be seeking this housing and the people who will ultimately be tenants in any rental development that gets built are not poor people. It's not as though they'd be sleeping in a doorway if we don't build this kind of development. They have choices and they will move elsewhere. And so many other areas of the country do not require such a high proportion of income. I mean, another name for affordable housing is workforce housing. And in the case of Southold town, that's especially true. The price of houses has gone up so much in the last 15 or 20 years that we find if you ask somebody, could you afford to buy your house if you had to now on the open market? And first people look astonished when you ask them that. And then they say, actually, really not. So if you can't, why do you expect the people who live here, the young people, to be able to buy that house? There's a total mismatch between income and housing prices. People are afraid of affordable housing, workforce housing, whatever you want to call it. I think they're afraid because their house is their biggest investment. It's their nest egg. They fear that just even the concept of affordable housing is something that will, erode home values. What's interesting is last year The real estate company collected data on this, and one of the things that they found when they matched affordable housing to the areas in which, the larger areas in which they were built, they found that there was absolutely no statistical difference in the rise in housing values in communities with affordable developments. And that's an interesting thing. I mean, I think just anecdotally, we know that the cottages in Mattituck haven't affected housing prices in Mattituck. Houses in Mattituck have appreciated as fast as houses in any other hamlet here. And so it doesn't create a trend. It doesn't create a trend. It doesn't really affect your asset, your house.
Honestly, the last time it's been successful was the cottages, because it's a well-renowned affordable housing group of homes that I get probably 10 years ago now, and the community wasn't too excited about it, but once they see the success and what it's done, has very much embraced it. It's set up to be perpetually affordable, so it has safeguards in it that it'll always stay on the affordable side. So it's such a success, it's unbelievable.
I have been living here for 5 years. I bought this house in 2012. Well, I was living behind my parents' house. They actually live around the corner, down the street, and my cousin came over and said that one of these houses was going to become available, that people that lived here were selling it. So I went to the town hall and I spoke to Philip, and he said yes, one is becoming available. And then he gave me all the information that I needed to get my mortgage and go for first-time home buyer counseling, which I did. And then I went for a lottery, and I had a 50-50 chance with one other person, and I won. So I was so excited, like me and my daughter were jumping up and down. And then I just still have to pinch myself because I can't believe that I bought a house in Mattituck.
Through the years, there's been other projects in Southold. There's been some in Southold, there's been some in Greenport. The problem with them, I guess the good and bad is they started off affordable, but there was no checks and balances, there was no mechanism to keep them affordable. So the unfortunate part of it is, like, there's one in Southold I heard was just sold for a summer house. Somebody from Brooklyn just bought it for summer at an active rate. So these houses are all of a sudden $500,000 houses. Very unfortunate, and they're beautiful little communities.
East Hampton Town has a number of affordable housing success stories. So Dennis and Mark Terry took a road trip to visit with the folks over at the East Hampton Housing and Community Development Department to learn about those successes and glean some information from their projects.
It's called the Manor House. It's designed to look like a farmhouse. So the idea is it's 4 condo units, 1 one-bedroom, 2 two-bedrooms, and a 3-bedroom.
Okay.
First impressions were how well managed the sites were, and that the sites blended in well with the area. It was surprising that East Hampton has over 500 affordable housing units that they have been creating since the 1980s. There are a large variety of units and homes to accommodate many needs.
What we really need here is rental housing, because often we're looking for housing for young people and they haven't had time or salaries that were big enough to have any discretionary income that would enable them to save up for a down payment. So they weren't in a position to buy a unit, and we're hoping that the next project will be a rental project.
We are changing legislation. We have already made apartments much easier to get approval for within existing homes. We have actually changed the code to allow up to 12 units per acre. The previous zoning allowed for up to 6 units per acre. Economically, that didn't work for the developers. We've taken that to 12. We're starting to see some interest because they need density. There's a critical mass they need to make the program work for them. Nobody wants to build affordable housing and lose on the proposition. In order to get people to be pro-affordable housing, I think our big challenge is to make sure they know who we're helping. They need to make sure that affordable housing, creating housing that keeps young people here, that keeps retirees here, is good for the entire community. I think that For many of the people, they say they support affordable housing, but when you go and put your finger on a map and you say that's where it's going to go, that's where the reaction comes. I think as a general rule, most people, I have faith in people, and I do think many people do recognize the need to keep affordable housing, to keep the young people here, to keep houses at a reasonable price or apartments at a reasonable rental value. I think by and large they believe that. It's the details that they might be opposed to. And the only way you can overcome the opposition to the program is to not let those details be a myth. You got to make sure that everybody understands every facet of it.
So we're trying to get out with this video and any way we can to say, people, let's have the conversation. Let's not, please take the time and get all the information. Don't just think this is just a negative, terrible thing. It's well worth us all coming together as a community and trying to figure out the problem that's there.